learn something, walk away with a tidbit of knowledge, a piece of advice, an offer to get my email so I can make an introduction for you. There's a reason you joined this call, and maybe it's so that you don't have to take out the garbage or, do some kind of housework chore. But my imagination is you're here to gain something. So whereas I will give you kind of broad strokes of where I've been, what I really be better off knowing before I do any of that is, where is it that you're hoping that I'm going to take you in this call, so that, because I could talk to you about my, when I worked in California, and what you really want to understand is, how did I get my first job? Or, so I can tell you a bit about me, but I'd love to tailor that to what each of you are hoping to get out of this, and I'll do my best to get to each of your goals. So I see some of you on the screen, I don't see others, but for those of you who I do see, I'm going to ask you guys first. So Mara, if there's one thing that, 45 minutes from now, for you to be able to say, that was fantastic, I got exactly what I needed out of it, what would it be that I would share with you?
I'll say your experience and what you learned of your experience.
Okay, perfect. That's great. Casey, have we met? I feel like I know your face.
I don't think we've met.
Okay. Hello, personal. Okay, no, I wondered if you were something else I spoke at, but I guess not.
Not that I remember. I also have a terrible memory, so.
Right. So
I guess how to narrow down your job search for after graduating from undergrad school.
That's a great question. Okay. Katrine? I think you're on mute. You're still on mute. Okay, so we're going to go back to you. Abby, what would be something that I can answer for you, or that you're hoping to get out of today's conversation?
I think just like a clear direction, because for me personally, I've kind of had like a foggy idea of what I want to seek in a direction. So I think that's really what I have a question about.
Okay. So Katrine, is that, maybe I'm saying your name wrong. Oh, I would love to hear about your career and your day-to-day life. Okay, I can do that. Anybody else who's not on screen who wants to answer in a chat, or if you want to just take off your mute button and pop in, you're more than welcome.
Yeah, hi, my name is Irene. Piggybacking off of what Abby said, I would also just like to know, kind of gain an insight on how to start my career and how to figure out what I'm interested in, because I'm interested in so many things. So it's like, how do you choose?
Okay. Is there anybody else on just audio who wants to chime in with something they want to hear about? Okay, so the best way for us to go forward is for you to make sure that this is interactive. So whether you type in the chat, if you're on a screen and you want to wave your hand so that I stop talking, let's just make this as interactive as possible. So I graduated in 1990, which I know feels, it's suddenly really a long time ago, but I have to be honest with you, it feels like yesterday. I miss Oneonta all the time. Best experience, I shouldn't say of my life, because my fiance would be very sad to know that, but really truly one of the best experiences I've ever had. And I'll be honest with you, it's interesting because you're talking about experience I've had, direction, how do you figure out how to start your career, how do you figure out what to pick. So I went to college. I wanted to be a teacher, but by the time I got to Oneonta, for me it was all about journalism, and I was going to be a writer, which is how I became a communications major. And I ended up working for the State Times for 3 years. I got very, very, very involved. Oh, Casey, are you a State Times girl? Are you?
Yeah.
So here we go. Hold on.
Yeah, I started my sophomore year as a staff writer, and right now.
This sat on my desk for 3 years. This is my Oneonta State Times plaque.
I love that.
So, and if I took you downstairs, I've got my first edition that I published, and then 3 years later, the last edition, like all about the State Times. So,
oh, that's so great.
Yeah. So I love that you work for the paper.
Yeah, I love it. It's one of my favorite things that I've done on campus. I've like it's just given me a stronger sense of community, and I mean I love journalism, and I love being on Times.
Oh my gosh. Okay, maybe I felt that there was a connection between us, which is why I feel like I've met you before. So I went knowing that I love to teach, but I wanted to get into journalism, and I ran the State Times for 3 years. But I also, when I graduated, I took a job as PR, Directory of Community Relations for a hospital on Long Island. I had no desire to be in the medical field, and I didn't know if I really wanted to be in PR, but it was a job. And the way I got that job, and the way I have found that throughout my entire life, I get opportunities and give opportunities, is it's who you know. And that doesn't mean, so any of us who are at Oneonta probably aren't at Oneonta because we're legacy students from Harvard and we just decided to go to a state school, right? I mean, you know that if you go to Harvard or Princeton, you're hanging out with other people who have an incredible amount of money. So it's always frustrating when people say it's who you know, because if you're not part of the Young Presidents Organization and you didn't go to Harvard, it's going to be a lot harder to meet those people. That's only true to an extent, because everyone you know knows someone. So when you meet me, you meet everyone in my network. And what I'm coming to find out now, and this is what's one of the only cool things about getting older, is the people who were my classmates now have these crazy, amazing jobs. And back in the day, so the police commissioner of New York, Terrence, is, the last time I saw him, he was throwing up in my living room at 90 Clinton in Oneonta. And he's now the police commissioner for New York City. It's bananas. So for any of you who watch Blue Bloods, he's Tom Selleck. And the last time I saw him, he was blasted. So all of a sudden, right, it's funny. So the people you know now who have no experience, everyone's going to grow up to be something or someone. And everyone has adults in their life who have careers. So I never, ever, ever advise that you use anyone. But as you meet people, please don't think that just because you didn't go to Harvard, or, how am I going to meet anyone who's a stockbroker because I don't have any stockbrokers in my family? Everyone has an opportunity to meet someone else. So I got my job at the hospital because every summer I had to work to be able to pay for college. And I took a job at a temp agency and ended up at a healthcare company, answering phones. I was nobody. I made sure that every single person there, I learned their name, I got to know them, I paid attention to them, and I got to, a receptionist, you walk right by on your way into your office, right? It's the person who sits in the front and you pay no attention to them. I knew who everyone was, would greet them every day, and I made sure that they got to know me, or that I got to know them. Well, one of the people there left that company, went to work at hospital, and before she left, she said, I'm leaving. This is where I'm going. Find me when you graduate. Now, I ended up starting as a temp there, but because I demonstrated that I was willing to work long, work late, hey, I'm just sitting at the front desk. Can I also do this? Can I also do that? And I took on extra work. I had a guaranteed job. I could come home for the winter break and show back up. I always had a job there for 3 years. I could go back on any break. That's how I ended up getting my first job, was because of someone who I met at a temp job. I was answering phones. I was completely disposable. And I chose to look at this as, okay, well, I can make whatever it is an hour and be bored out of my mind, or I can get something out of this. So in terms of getting experience, part of it is creating the experience that you want, because again, it was a temp job. It was supposed to last for a week, and it turned out to be a 3-year gig for me. So you kind of create your own experiences. And the first job I got, I didn't want to work in a hospital. I absolutely didn't want to work in a hospital. But I knew the woman, she knew me. It was a foot in the door to doing PR. And what was interesting is the hospital was a terrible, terrible, terrible hospital. You wouldn't bring your dog to this hospital. But I was in charge of PR. So the only way to get people into the hospital was to create events that would draw them in. What was in it for them? So we would do free flu shots. We would do breast cancer screening. We would do, seminars. So I had to plan an event in order to write about it. So we would say, okay, we're going to do flu screenings. So I would have, okay, how many vaccines do we need? And like literally all the logistics for that. And then would write about, hey, this is coming up. The event would happen. I would take pictures and then I would write about it. And what I started to realize was I liked planning the events a little bit more than I liked writing about them. But I'm a journalism major and I don't know anything about planning events, and I've got this job, and what am I going to do? Because this isn't supposed to be what I'm doing. I've told everybody I'm a journalism major. And that's something that I know that do any of you have that issue where you think about changing your mind and you're like, how am I going to tell everybody that I'm going to go from being a poli-sci major to being a math major? And then you're going to go be an economics major. And after a while, you're just like, I can't say anything to anybody because I worry that people are going to say something, or my parents are going to roll my eyes, or, well, you know what? It's your life, not theirs. And I was like, yeah. So I'm just going to tell everybody now I'm deciding I want to be an event planner. So again, it's who you know and experiences you create. So I know in the back of my head, I want to learn to plan events. I'm at this hospital. I create the experience of I'll just keep planning events for them, but I'm going to wait for my opportunity to get out of here. I need to figure out what my plan is. The hospital had a layoff, and I raised my hand and said, lay me off. And they said, we're not going to lay you off. We love you. I'm like, no, lay me off. So I got a package. They paid me to leave, which I wanted to do anyway, and said, well, now I'll go to graduate school. So I went to graduate school for communications and looked for an internship because I knew if I was back in a school system, an internship with somebody who did events would get me into the path that I wanted. So New York State is paying me unemployment to go back to graduate school. I called one of my Oneonta professors and said, would you give me a recommendation? He got me a fellowship at the college. So I ended up teaching and pretty much got college or graduate school for almost nothing because I made myself memorable to this particular professor. He called the head of the communications department at the college and said, hey, Christy, blah, 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 blah. If you ever need a teaching assistant or a graduate assistant, she said, bring her in or tell her to come in. And I got hired again because of someone I met at Oneonta. So I met the lady from healthcare. It got me to a hospital, which got me to get laid off, which got me to then go to graduate school. I then get this graduate opportunity, which allowed me to teach communications classes. So I got to do both. I got to do the teaching that I loved, and I got to enhance my communication skills. And while I'm there, I get myself an internship, and bam, I'm now doing complete grunt work for a guy in the events world. So, but, oh, by the way, I can do all his writing and all of his marketing because I'm a communications major and I know how to write. So the first thing I'll tell you is you don't have to pick one permanently. So 30 years later, I've been an event planner for years, but I write for industry magazines. I've written a book. I write blogs. I write all the time. I didn't choose. I prioritized. So I make my salary as a planner, but I make some really decent pocket money by writing. And then I said, you know what? I love speaking. I love teaching because speaking is teaching, right? I mean, if you're speaking to a group of people, it's hopefully, unless you're a stand-up comedian, you're there to teach them something. So I said, you know, I've always loved being a teacher. I'm a communications major. So I became a professional speaker and speak all over the country and get paid, well, before COVID, a stupid amount of money to do something I loved. So now I get to plan events. I get to write about the events. I still get to teach. Now I get to speak. I didn't have to pick anything. I just had to create logical steps for it. And everything is an opportunity. So in terms of direction, one of the ways that you can figure out your direction is start by figuring out what you don't want. Because if let's say you've got 6 things you like to do and how do I pick one? Start to cross off the list the stuff you don't want. So you may love the idea of being an event planner, but you also really like the idea of being a journalist and you like the idea of being a teacher. So you're saying, I asked you to be done with this call and have some direction. Okay, so now what do I do? Okay, so if you look at that a little bit further, so you've got event planner, you've got teacher. What was the third one that I decided we could be? A journalist. So event planner. Okay, I really want to be an event planner. Let's think about an event planner's life. An event planner is always running around busy. An event planner, it's probably going to take me 10 years before anybody takes me seriously because it's such a competitive field. An event planner, you travel all the time. Okay, so of those things, what do you like and what don't you like? Okay, compare that to being a teacher. Okay, if I'm a teacher, I never travel. It allows me to have a family, and I'm going to have a pension and get to belong to a union. Okay, all right, this is what I like about this. So even if you're looking at this thing, I can't decide on the professions, drill down deeper into the professions and see what each one offers. I knew that I could never be a teacher full time because I can't imagine my life if I knew that every day homeroom was at 8:15, lunch was at noon, school let out at 2:30. I couldn't do that for a week. It would, to me, that is the definition of hell to me. It truly, like, I can't even imagine people live that way. My sister is a kindergarten teacher. She loves the routines. She loves knowing what her life is going to be like every day. She hates to travel. She absolutely doesn't want to go anywhere. She hates unpredictability. And she'll call me and say, how are you? And I said, I'm fine. She's like, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm in Colorado. She said, what are you doing in Colorado? Or I'll be on the phone with her and say, yeah, you know, I'm thinking of going to LA tomorrow. She said, tomorrow? Yeah, I don't have to fly the plane. What's the difference? All I have to do is buy a ticket. How could you go to LA tomorrow? Well, and to her, that is just unnerving. So I realized, okay, I like teaching. I can't be a teacher full time, but you know what I did? I started teaching college, and I taught college for 10 years. And I made sure that I was always back on a Tuesday because I had a class Tuesday night. So if I had events, come hell or high water, unless it was urgent, I would always fly back. There were nights where I flew back on a Tuesday, taught class, and flew out after the class on Tuesday. But I loved teaching. So I found a way to make teaching work. So you don't have to give up anything, but I realized I couldn't be a teacher full time. It would make me crazy. Journalism. I went into journalism, and when I was in graduate school, I worked as part of a news crew. I'm 5'2", so the first time they sent me out with a camera, the package I came back with was everybody's shoulders because I couldn't see over any of the other news crew. So my footage was crap because you couldn't. They were like, "What was the?" I was there to film Al Sharpton, and all they saw was the shoulder of the guy in front of me because, and even when I moved, I was still shorter than everybody. So okay, not going to be a camera person. Then they put me, okay, go do some on-air reporting. And the first story they sent me was a local girl was killed by her boyfriend. They were both seniors. And they send me to the house of the girl who died, to knock on the door and get a reaction from the parents. So the video crew and I go, and we sat outside her house, and I said, can we all pretty much imagine what the parents would say if they answered the door? Do I really need to knock on the door to say, so how do you feel that your daughter's boyfriend murdered her yesterday? What are they going to tell me that I can't already imagine? And I'm not going to do that. So I stood in front of the house and did a stand up and said, we're here, because for all anybody knew, I knocked on the door and they wouldn't let me in, right? So I do my package from outside the house, but I don't knock on the door. Those people were answering the door and they were talking to reporters. Guess whose news station was the only one that didn't have an interview with the family that night? So they said, okay, on-air reporting, you don't get to do that. And I was like, yeah, on-air reporting, I don't want to do that because, oh my God, that's an awful way to make a living. Then they put me in the anchor chair. And it was, oof, you know what, you're gonna have to move your hair a little because you've got a little blemish here. And, are you kidding me? I'm gonna worry about making my living off, I can't gain 3 pounds. I've got a blemish on my forehead, and suddenly we've got an entire makeup crew out there because it's like the Titanic is springing from my forehead. Guys, who cares? I'm here to depart information. No, you're not. You're here to be a talking head and people are looking at you. Well, I don't want you judging me by what I look like. I care about teaching. Okay, journalism. Off the list, because print journalism, I didn't want to be a reporter for the same reason. So when you go through the stuff you don't like, sometimes it leads you to what you do like. So how did I get all of it? I am a contributing writer for publications. Okay, now I don't have to cover any news stories. It doesn't pay particularly well, but I don't have to care. I want to teach, but I do it on my terms because I'm not an elementary school teacher. I do it for college, and I teach adults. I couldn't teach kids. They don't make sense to me. So I love traveling. I love spontaneity. I love having no idea what my day is going to be. But even knowing that I would have an unpredictable day for the rest of my life, I was doing the same thing over and over and over again. So I decided I'll leave corporate America. I'll start my own business. And that'll be different enough because now I can be an entrepreneur. And then I got bored being an entrepreneur. So I said, okay, now I'll go teach college while I'm still running my own company. And along the way, you meet so many people. And if you take the time to get to know someone, and the best way to do that is to start by asking them questions and actually letting them give you answers, you're going to form a better relationship. And those are the people who you'll be able to reach out to later and say, because you develop some type of rapport with them. Casey, I'm going to remember Casey because she gave me a piece of commonality that we share. I was talking to, right before this started, we were talking about the lanterns behind her and they're from Thailand. That's going to connect with me and I'm going to remember that. So if Mara reaches back out to me and says, hey, Christy, I was on that thing. Remember we talked about the lanterns behind me from Thailand? Boom, I remember her. So give people a reason to connect with you and find some commonality and then offer something. So Casey, you know what you had said here with the State Times, if you know, are you interested in being an editor? If you're up for competition, I can help you with the top 3 things you should know, whatever it is. So figure out what the commonality is and then do one of 2 things. Casey, I can offer you this. Or Mara, you know what? I haven't been to Thailand, but I'd love to go. Have you been there? What do you think of if I go to Phuket versus, and allow that person to be useful? So you can ask them for something, but what you're asking them to do is give you a piece of their experience, to give you an opportunity to listen to them talk about something they love, as opposed to, okay, Casey, so I was the editor of the State Times for 3 years, and then just talk about my experience. Do you care? Not enough to listen for half an hour, right? Enough to be like, okay, that's cool, but now all she's doing is talking about herself, and I gotta be honest with you, I'm bored. And who's our favorite subject? Ourselves, right? So you have to break out of wanting to talk about your favorite subject and talk about somebody else's favorite subject, which is why when Danielle said, Christy, let's talk, tell everybody about who you are. No, let's see what everybody else wants to hear, because you didn't come here to hear about me. You came here to hear about what I know that could be helpful to you. And that, as you figure out how to narrow your job search, as you figure out how to get experience, as you figure out how to get your direction, what my career and my day-to-day life is, how I started my career search and what I'm interested in, it all comes back to everybody around me. Truly. I yesterday hired someone who I met 30 years ago, couldn't stand her, kept bumping into her. We finally started a relationship. She worked for me years ago. She left. I rehired her. I needed somebody, and I immediately picked up the phone and said, hey, you looking for work? I know her. If she said no, and she said, no, I'm not, but you should call this person, her word alone will open a door for me. I didn't put an ad out. If I couldn't find anyone, I would. But unless a company has to, and bigger companies often do, has to put out an ad, a lot of times they already know who they're hiring before it even hits the papers or hits the internet. So now we go back to, well, how do I get my first job? And I want to work for, Verizon. I don't know anybody at Verizon. So how do I get someone to know me? So LinkedIn is a beautiful thing. Talk to everybody in your world. Who do you know who's older than you? And talk to them. So I'm going to challenge you with something. It's getting to be Thanksgiving season. I appreciate Thanksgiving isn't going to be what it usually is this year. But when I taught college, I gave my class a homework assignment. So every week we had a networking assignment. You had to meet someone every week and write about it. And the first week they would meet someone in their math class, and they really didn't venture out to be on their comfort zone. So the week before Thanksgiving, I said to them, you're going to think this is a blow-off assignment, but I promise you, this assignment will change at least one of your lives. Next week for Thanksgiving, go talk to somebody at your Thanksgiving table. Like, what are you talking about? I said, go meet somebody at Thanksgiving. I said, it's the same 6 people. It's my crazy Uncle Henry, Aunt Gladys who chews with her mouth full, blah, blah. Yeah. What did Uncle Henry do before he married Aunt Gladys? I don't know. Okay. Why is he crazy? I don't know. He just always has been. No, he had a life before he showed up at your Thanksgiving dinner table. Go meet crazy Uncle Henry. And everybody rolls their eyes. And everybody wants to prove me wrong. So one gal raises her hand and she says, my Thanksgiving is only 3 people, me, my dad, and my dad's best friend. And my dad's best friend was there when I was born. He knows everything about me. I said, and you're not the point of this conversation. He is. Go home and meet your dad's best friend. And she huffed and she puffed and she said, this is ridiculous. I've known him my whole life. who came back to me after Thanksgiving and said, oh my God, that girl, turns out her dad's best friend works for a huge company out in LA that produces the Grammys, the Emmys, like all these red carpet shows. She wants to go into event planning. He's been doing it his whole freaking life. She's never thought to ask him what he does. She said, I'm dropping out of school. I'm leaving at Christmas break and I'm moving out to LA. And now she's out there and has a job in LA doing what she always wanted to do because she talked to someone she's known her entire life and knows everything about. She knew nothing about him. And the minute he found out what she was interested in, he said, oh, come. She was gone. A month later, this kid was no longer in my class. Gone. Because she talked to somebody. So you don't have to go to Harvard. You don't have to, live in an expensive area and hang out with rich people. You can create your experience if you're willing to see it as an experience. So, the hospital was going to have a layoff. Lay me off. I don't have kids. I have very few living expenses. Everybody else is going to cling to a job because I don't want to be unemployed. What am I going to do if I'm unemployed? I don't know. I'm going to figure it out. So I kind of plotted and put my name in there and waited. And while they were figuring out who they were going to let go, I was like, okay, let me just do some research. If I get laid off, what am I going to do? I want to figure out how to go into events. What school could I go to get my master's? So I get my master's, I get this internship. I meet a guy who I ultimately end up working with who's in the event world, but I graduate. I need a job again. I want to go into events. I know this one guy and I'm doing some freelance work for him, but now what do? I call temp agencies. And I said, because I still love journalism. We talked about you don't always have to choose. So I love events and I love journalism. So how do I solve that problem? I plan events for a magazine. So I start calling temp agencies all over Long Island. Hey, do you place with publishing companies? No. Hey, you do? Okay, I'm going to come in and take a typing test for you guys. So I go to that specific agency, take their stupid typing test, and hey, here's a surprise, I'm qualified to answer phones. Like anybody can, as far as I'm concerned, get a temp job. So I end up get put into a publishing company in Garden City. It's a brand new incubator company that's creating new magazines for a parent company. I get there the first day their first magazine comes out. So I'm there from like the baby is born. I was there for 6 years. And we put out new magazine after new magazine. And I was there and I started to get bored because I was doing their trade shows. By the way, I have no idea how to do a trade show. But I knew a little bit more than everybody else around me, which was I knew the phrase trade show. I mean, I knew nothing. And they would send you these manuals and it would say like, how much electricity do you need? How many volts and how many watts? And I cried and like literally just wept. How much electricity do I need at a trade show booth? I have no idea. And by the way, back in the Stone Ages when dinosaurs roamed the earth, there was no internet. Dr. Google, he wasn't there. So I'm sitting in my little cubicle. It's 9 o'clock at night. The lights are out because they have the electricity saver thing. So I'm sitting in the dark looking at this manual. There is no internet, sobbing because I have no idea how much electricity to order. So I figured, okay, well, I'll just pick the biggest box. Nobody knew the difference. I got there and the electrician's like, sweetheart, what are you doing? You've got to plug in a light bulb and blah, blah. This is what you need. Okay, I solved that problem. So I get trade shows down. I'm a little bit bored. Okay, well, why don't I talk about selling advertising to the people running the trade shows in my magazine? Okay, now I have an entire department that allows me to sell advertising. Okay, what about sponsorships? And then I ran sponsorships. So I created these opportunities, and every time I went to my boss and said, hey, can I take this on? He's like, I'm not paying you anything else. Well, that's okay. Because right now, chances are you're paying for school, right? Once you start working, you get paid and you learn. So his big thing was, I'm not paying you extra. No, that's okay. So now I get to say, I can write a sponsorship program and execute it. I can do barter ads, I can sell. And so I just used that as my playground. They kept paying me. I knew a little bit more than they did. And then suddenly I had an office on the West Coast. I had an office on the East Coast. I was running 3 different magazines. I had a staff of 12. I joined there as a temp, but I created the opportunity and I was willing to make myself vulnerable in that I did stuff I didn't know how to do. To this day, I just started at a startup, and the CEO said to me, I need you to go get us a surety bond. I said, okay, you know what? And of course, this wasn't true. I was like, you know what? Your voice just cut out. Tell me again, what did you just say? Because I had to write it down because I don't know what a surety bond is. So I looked it up. I spelled it phonetically, and apparently that's correct. And then had to understand what it was, and then just start dialing for dollars to find someone who could issue a surety bond. And they started asking me questions. I was like, I have absolutely no idea what the answer to this is. I'll get back to you. So to this day, 100 years later, I'm still creating experiences. I'm still taking on things that scare me, and I figure it out along the way. But I usually find that if it's something I'm afraid of, it's something I should be doing because it's the only way I'm going to learn. And if you don't do the stuff you're afraid of, you're never going to get better at anything, and you're never going to have the opportunity to say, yeah, I've done that. So my best friend from Oneonta went into television and is on QVC. He makes his living selling stuff on QVC. I meet his boss. I make sure that I become memorable. They have a thing to sell that my friend Mark can't sell because he can only sell in a specific category. And his boss calls me and he's like, you're a speaker. You want to go on QVC? Can you sell this pencil for us? Sure. And the next thing I know, I'm in Pennsylvania at QVC Studios. They give you 6 hours of training and suddenly you're qualified to go on TV and sell stuff. By the way, it is so much harder than it looks. I am terrified. And because there's a monitor here and there's a monitor here and there's such a science to it, it's fascinating. So as an aside, so you have to say, because the cameraman has to get ready to show whatever it is that you need a close-up on. So you can't just say, look at this, because the cameraman can't get there fast enough. So what you say is, and you know, one of the things that I love most about the pencil is the point. And one of the reasons that, and so that cues the cameraman that he needs to go to the point of the pencil. So that shot is set up and then the producer says, cut to camera 3, because now somebody is focused on the tip of the pencil. And below me, I have a screen that shows me what's on the air and what's coming next, all while you're talking. And you've got a voice in your head that's saying, okay, do that again, all at the same time. I was terrified. It was the longest 4 minutes of my life. I would tell you that it was horrific. And when they called me to do it again, what did I say? I was terrified and it was a horrible experience. Did I do it? Uh-huh. And it sucked a little bit, not much less, but it sucked a little less. And I absolutely know that if I kept doing that, I'd get good at it because I'm doing what I'm afraid of and I'm getting better. Apparently, you know, it would be a lot easier to sell stuff on QVC than it is to do what I'm doing now. It's not what I love. So if you go for the money, I've always said I'm not smart enough to do the easy thing because they offered me a job on QVC and I could make a living, crazy good living, say like, here, buy this pencil. It's not me. So I know what I like and I know what I don't like, and I don't like to be bored. And if you're looking at me, judging me instead of what's coming out of my mouth, it's not my place. So I knew I couldn't do QVC because I had already done the exercise of I know who I am and I know what I like and I know what I don't like. I know I like going on QVC occasionally because it's funny to do, it's random, it's spontaneous, and it still scares the crap out of me. And it's a fun story to be able to tell people. Or someone will, you know, my aunt will say, were you on QVC yesterday at 2 o'clock in the morning selling handbag hangers? Uh-huh. She's like, don't even explain it to me. I like that. So as you figure out your direction, the direction you pick, have you ever heard the phrase, wherever you go, there you are? So whatever direction I go in, I'm going to like I'm still me. My tastes may change a bit, but wherever you go, there you are. So if you love money and you decide that you're going to be a teacher, but you forgot the part of when I look at everything about being a teacher, because I'm doing it in a small suburb in South Carolina, I'm never going to make $40,000 a year. Wherever you go, there you are. If that's important to you, you need to acknowledge that if money is important to you, okay, great. Money may not be important to me. I want to give it all away. I have to make it in order to give it away. So you have to acknowledge who you are and honor that, because you can put yourself in a different situation. If any of you ever dated the wrong guy and you figure, he's so nice, my parents love him, everybody loves him, I'm just going to date him because, okay. If he's not your guy, he's not your guy. So if you pick the wrong job or the right job for the wrong reasons or the right job for the wrong reasons, it's not going to work. Because everywhere you go, there you are. If it's not a fit, it's not going to become one. And you do, Thoreau said most men lead lives of quiet desperation. You have the opportunity right now to go in whatever direction you want, as opposed to ending up in a career that you hate and or just are bored with, and you just end up, you do the same thing every day and you're miserable, and but now it's too late to go back because you've got a house and you've got kids. Right now you can write your script. So, how do you narrow down your job search? How do you get the experience? How do you figure out your direction? So what would you like to be? What would you like to do? If failure weren't an option, what would you do? And write it down, and then let's figure out how to get you there. So, and okay, I've got 3 things. Go back to the exercise. Let's write down everything I can think of about option numbers 1, 2, and 3. Check marks for things you like and X's for things you don't. So if I'm a teacher, I have stability. Okay, yeah, I don't like stability, so I'm gonna put an X there. I love stability, so I'm gonna put a check mark. And look at the columns, and then do it a little bit further. So, and then when you look at that, then say, okay, I've decided that I want to be a music producer. Okay, so I did my exercise, music producer wins. Okay, part of exercise number 2, how am I going to get there? Do I need more education? Do I need an internship? Do I need to move out to LA? Where are the opportunities? I'm probably not going to be able to mix sound for Beyonce tomorrow. So where do I go based on where I am right now? Is it that I stay local and there's a small record studio? Is it that I do it for, I start working at a radio station? I can work for a production company that does corporate theater where I learn to master an audio board. What are your options? Start talking to people. So Abby, I'm thinking about going into music production, and I'm talking to everybody I know. You know anything about music production? Do you know anything about music production? And all of a sudden Abby says, oh my God, it's so, how many times have you had someone say to you, that's the craziest thing that you should say that, because just yesterday, and you think it's this crazy coincidence, the sooner you realize that that is not a coincidence, and that is the universe's way of bringing you what you're asking for, the better off you're going to be, because if where your thoughts go, your energy flows. So if you decide, this is what I want, if you're a hammer, all you see is a nail. If you decide I am absolutely going to become a music producer, that's all I'm going to think about. And that is absolutely what I'm going to do. And I'm going to figure out my plan. You are going to bump into so many things that are going to get you there because you're paying attention, because you believe it's going to happen. So all of a sudden I'm talking to Mara, and she's like, hey, Christy, what are you up to? Yeah, you know what? I was on LinkedIn. I'm looking for music producers. Why are you doing that? I feel like I'm going to have to move to LA. Oh my gosh, my uncle has an apartment complex out in LA. I bet you if you were offered to be a project manager, blah, 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 he'd let you live out there. Okay. It's random. No, it's not. So you create your opportunities, you create the experience, and then my day-to-day life, someone asked about, it is because it's my life and I like this, completely, utterly unpredictable. And there's an enormous amount of, am I allowed to say this word? There's an enormous amount of junk that rains down on my head every day. And it's miserable, and I absolutely love it. I love to eat adrenaline. If everything is going well, I'm incredibly bored. And all I do all day is deal with unbelievable, like I'm talking to you guys, I have 3 screens in front of me. It's like NASA here, and they're all exploding. I need you to help me with this. This is, that makes me happy. If everything's going well, I get cranky. So my day-to-day life is the experience I chose. I like chaos, and I like to be in the middle of the chaos, which is also very similar to event planning, which in some ways is similar to speaking, because you've got an audience of however many people, and they've all got their own thoughts and they're all doing their own thing, and you have to bring everybody to a single point of attention and create the chaos of all those disparate thoughts and center them on what it is that you're talking about. So you can give your information and help them achieve their goals. So my day-to-day life is a reflection of who I am and where I want to be and the experiences that I've created. So I'm not a believer that it's ever too late and that you ever have to choose just one thing. So I would tell you right now, if you can't figure out what you want to do, and you decide, okay, this is the path I'm going to go down, that doesn't mean you've said goodbye to those other things. It's kind of like having a favorite bathing suit and favorite sweater. I love them both. Can't wear both of them at one time. can't wear them in the wrong season, but I'm going to do the sweater for now because it's the right season. And when it comes time to put the bikini back on, I'll go with the bikini, but I need to put the bikini away for now. So it doesn't have to be an either or. It just has to be a when. Does that make sense? So at least for those of you who are on screen, your eyes are still open, which is good. So that either means you put something in front of your camera and you're watching YouTube videos, or I'm keeping you awake. So thoughts like, am I hitting your points? How do I continue to help you? Because I can talk for days, but I feel like we need to get you guys more engaged.
I mean, at least for me, I'm really interested in the whole event planning aspect of event planning aspect of it, just because last semester I did an internship in Ireland with an event planning company, and that was kind of my first time ever. I did a lot of digital marketing, which is that's sort of where my head's at right now, at least, but I did really enjoy that mixed with the event planning. Unfortunately, got cut short because of COVID, but for the short time I was there, about a month and a half, I really enjoyed it, and I loved working with the people who I worked with. So that's where I'm sort of trying to think about going in that direction. So like, at least for me, it's really cool to hear you talk about that.
So here's the thing. We talk about creating experiences, and people say that, the word crisis in Chinese means opportunity. That's not true. But if it were, it would be kind of cool, right? So let's imagine that crisis also means opportunity, because you should never waste a good crisis. So COVID is, inarguably a crisis. It's also an opportunity. So here's the thing. Event planning is an industry that has been decimated as we know it. However, if you, Casey, wanted to go into planning and COVID didn't happen, I have 30 years more experience than you, right? I'm always going to have 30 years more experience than you. And chances are I might not hire you because, oh, by the way, you have no experience, right? And you can't do anything about that. Here's the fun thing with COVID, and this isn't just true for the event industry, and this is about looking at something and trying to find your opportunity. Casey, how much experience do you think I have producing nothing but online events?
4 months because of COVID.
Yep. So all of a sudden, you will never catch up to me with my event planning experience. It's like saying if I'm 5 years older than you, I'm always going to be 5 years older than you. You can't change that. But all of a sudden, how many playing fields have become completely level because I don't know how to do this either, or the most experience I can have from this is March. So Casey now gets to go back into the event world and say, I'm really good with computers. I'm comfortable doing video streaming. I know how to market this. I know all about digital platforms. I have 30 years experience. I have less experience suddenly than you do in the event industry. How the heck did that happen? So for me, it sucks. For you guys, it's great. So other industries are having this problem where they're suddenly either doing things online or have to change it somehow because of COVID. If they're going to have to learn to do things differently, that means you have the same amount of experience they do. So Casey, if I were to interview you, if I had interviewed you a year ago, I may give you a position because yes, I need somebody to come in and learn how to blah, 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 blah. But there's a difference between, oh my gosh, we're going to hire Casey because now I don't have to learn how to do all this online junk. I don't want to learn this. I'm too old. I don't care. She's good at it. She's young. Casey now has more experience than I do, and I've been doing it for 30 years. You guys have the most extraordinary opportunity handed to you that you can completely level the playing field, and everyone who has more experience than you do in an industry that's been affected and now has to do things more virtually, you now have equal, if not more experience than they do. That has never, as far as I know, happened. You've just wiped out all my experience and come level, if not higher than me, in an industry you basically have never worked in besides an internship. Does that make sense?
But what I feel like the problem is, like, although that is an opportunity, I feel like a lot of companies now that were deeply affected by it, i.e. the event industry, they lost a lot of money from it, so they might not be hiring necessarily. Like, do you think that's something that we should be concerned about?
So you've decided that a company that, as far as you don't know, for a job that doesn't have a name in a place that you're unaware of, whatever that imaginary company is, has lost a lot of money and probably isn't going to hire you. But maybe they do. And I'm going to do it the other way. Events need to happen. They may not be happening live, but if you look at Zoom stock or you pay attention to how slow your internet is, people are online. People are learning online. We're doing this online. I am not in Oneonta and having dinner with Danielle at the Autumn tonight because we're doing the meetings online. I know, because we're doing meetings online. So yeah, they've probably lost some money. So my first thought to you is, what are they going to do to make some money? Okay, if people understood events better, they'd realize that events are the most powerful sales tool they have. They still need to be meeting. And okay, let's go with your premise, Casey. They've lost a lot of money, which means they need to start making it back, which means they need to get somebody in there who knows how to plan these online event thing, whatever the heck they're called. I don't know, the younger generation does it as fast as possible, as well as possible, and better than the competition as soon as possible, because we've got a lot of money to make up. So why would you take your scenario and make it a worse? Again, you can create the vision you want. If you decide there's going to be a roadblock, what you've done is you've created a roadblock, and now you've given yourself a reason to not go through with what was scary, right? Because it's frightening and it's intimidating, and how do I do it, and how do I start, and what if I don't get it? You've just given yourself a perfect out to not do what frightens you. Do what frightens you. So yeah, okay. And if the worst thing that happens is a lot of people, say, yeah, okay, maybe you're right. Okay, so they're not going to hire me for this, but what about, okay, colleges? Danielle all of a sudden has to do all these online things. She had a full-time job before this happened. Maybe I can go back to Oneonta and figure it out. Who else is doing online meetings? Schools. Schools all over the place are now doing the online classes. Colleges, teachers. I'm an excellent speaker on stage. I could be a terrible speaker online. So there are folks who are now teaching people how to teach online, because that's a whole new industry that's popped up. Because just because I'm supposed to do this doesn't mean I know how to do this. So where's your opportunity? You're good with digital marketing. So since I can no longer, if I'm Macy's and I'm closing my stores and there are fewer stores now, everything is going digital. Let's take your event experience and your digital, or your desire to work in events, and your digital experience, and let's see what department stores are hiring and how we create online events. Amazon Prime is an online event. So your digital marketing experience with your desire and your understanding of events, I have to create an experience. I have to engage people. I like to manage details. It may not look like what you expected. My first job at a hospital, working in an actual patient wing with all the Alzheimer's patients in the hallway. Oh my goodness. Okay, that did not look like what I wanted my first job to look like. It changed everything about my life. It also inspired me to get the hell out of there as quickly as possible. So you've just created a scenario, you don't have to take a risk. Who else? I've just silenced you all into complete amazement. Your eyes are glazing over.
We have enough time for a question or two, depending on the question. I do want to just say really quick, piggybacking off what you said, Christy, about it can be bleak when you look at the news and, the job projections and the unemployment rate, and it can be really scary. But we've done several of these type of programs, mostly in the School of Economics and Business, because we've had several of them since the beginning of the semester. And every single person who's done a program has said that they have not done layoffs. In fact, several have hired people since the beginning. So the companies who are pivoting and figuring out how to do things differently, like Christy said, I'm doing a program next week with a person who was a producer and produced theater productions. There's no theater right now. So what did he do? He figured out how to help all these people who need to get their programs produced and turned into virtual programs. So now he's helping people that have these famous fitness centers in the city turn their things into Zumba online because they need all of this production equipment. So, being flexible is really important, but I think that's really good advice, Christy, about don't put up a roadblock before you even start down the road.
Yeah, if I make dinner and I made liver and you don't like liver and you're like, yeah, that doesn't work for me, I'm gonna go find something else. And you now, okay, you're gonna get in your car, you're gonna order Grubhub. What I'm offering you isn't what you want. You can choose to take it, or you can choose to, all right, well, I wasn't planning on putting on my shoes and driving to XYZ. All right, so dinner looks different because what I offered you isn't what you want. Why take it if you don't want it? Change the narrative. No one can tell you what your life is going to be like. You get to right now pick what you want to do. And I don't know if you can see behind me. So I have all these photos and whatnot. Vision boards work. Figure out what you want to do and what it looks like, because it sits in front of you all the time. And if you can imagine it, if you can't imagine it, you can't get there. So I do a lot of personal coaching, and I will talk to people and they'll say, so Abby comes to me and she's like, yeah, I really want to be the VP of my department. And so we do the exercise. Abby, if you were the VP, tell me what that would look like. What would your office look like? What do you, so just close your eyes. What does Abby, the VP, look like? What is she wearing? Tell me exactly what she's wearing. And she's like, what does your hair look like? And they'll say, well, God, it's funny. My hair is cut in a bob and I'm wearing a red scarf because red is about power. And I'm like, okay, so if you want to be a VP, and to you, a VP means having a short haircut and wearing a power color, could you go buy a red scarf today, please? Wear the scarf now. Cut your damn hair. Why do you have to wait? Dress, but not just dress for the role, step into the role that you want to be and start to make it you. Abby, go get your hair cut. Oh, yeah, I guess I don't have to wait. No, don't wait for life to come to you. Dress for the part. You get your hair cut. You show up to work saying, okay, I'm in a power color. I feel really good. I am going to raise my hand in the meeting and I am going to make a suggestion. I am going to. And then you get noticed and say, okay, here's my plan. I want to be a VP. What else does that look like? Okay, that looks like, I know how to arrange budgets. I hate budgets, but you know what, as a VP, I'm going to need to know how to do that. Okay, I'm going to take an online class in Excel. You have to if you can't see it, you can't get there. And I'm looking at a picture right now of Positano. I've always wanted to go to Italy, and I promised myself I would get to Italy. I've been to Italy 8 times. Get a picture of it just so that if I can live through, X amount of days, I can go back to Italy. It's always there to remind me of where I want to be next. Because you never want to just stay where you are. Even if you're completely happy, what else can I learn? What else can I give? What else can I do? How else can I share? Who else can I help? So vision boards, so because you guys are all digital, create a Pinterest board and do it that way. And it's Abby's future, Casey's event shop, Mara's direction, and put stuff on your Pinterest board and open it to other people so they can say, hey, Mara, I know that you're looking to be a music producer. I just heard this great song. I'm throwing it on, your Pinterest because I thought you would really love to hear the way this is mixed, or who knows. But invite other people to be a part of it, or make it private, but create a Pinterest board for yourself. Casey's future, Abby's future, Danielle's future. Danielle 5 years from now. Just start, in 5 years, I want to, and it could be, like, and I know we're gonna run out of time. I knew one day when I was at that hospital, the CEO drove a BMW. And I thought, oh my, could you imagine having, I knew what color, it took me 20 years. I got the BMW. I never forgot it. And it never occurred to me that I wouldn't get it, ever. It didn't occur to me that maybe they would stop making them, or maybe I couldn't afford it, or maybe because they lost a lot of money in the pandemic, the prices were, it was just that simple. I would get one. I did. I always knew from when I was a kid, I would get a Tudor house. Tudor houses, not very popular on Long Island unless you live in Forest Hills, or Merrick. I knew I would get a Tudor. Never occurred to me I wouldn't. I live in the most magnificent Tudor house I have ever seen that I have no right to be in. It never occurred to me I wouldn't. So when I finally got it, everybody said, oh my God, you've always said you were going to get a Tudor. I did. Wasn't an option not to. You can do that for anything. I'm not special. I'm just a few years ahead of you. Nothing that I'm telling you makes me special or any different from you. I'm just a couple decades older than you. You can have the exact same story, and I would tell you can have a better story if you want to. So I'm going to give you, or Danielle can give you, somebody will give you my email address, and you guys can find me. At any point, I offer this all the time, and I always get the, we're going to, yeah, no. So the best I've gotten is someone reached out to me with maybe 3 emails of, I'm going to reach out to you. I'd love to talk to you. Okay, no, I have to cancel. And that kid's gone. And so he had 3 follow-ups and ultimately still did nothing. So you guys can, thank you. That's my email. You are welcome to reach out to me. I am happy to schedule a one-on-one call with you. I am completely at your disposal when you graduate. Well, after today's call, get on LinkedIn, connect with me, stay in touch with me, and when you are in your senior year or even your junior year, call me to talk about, this is the direction I'm going in. Let's do an informational interview. Who do you know? Who could you introduce me to? Who can do an informational interview? Take advantage. If someone tells you to, if somebody hands you, I guess people don't hand anybody business cards anymore, but take it. And if I give you the card or the opportunity, oh, maybe she didn't mean it. I don't want to bother her. Stop. Dial the damn phone. If it's inconvenient for me, that's my responsibility. I won't take your call. But the whole, I don't want to bother her, that's my problem, not yours. So, and yeah, just put Sony, exactly, thank you. Put Oneonta in the email and you will get my attention instantly. Fair? And don't communicate with me through LinkedIn. Send me an email. Let's link on LinkedIn, but send me an email.
I would say take her up on that for sure, and stay in touch. We will be doing more of these programs. We'll probably have a couple more. We'll do them about once a month. So make sure that you stay tuned for those. Casey has helped spread the word, so thank you so much. And we will say goodbye to Christy, and thank you so much for taking time out of your majorly busy life to
Definitely.
share all this. And on that note, you have the email. I'll leave this open just for a few seconds if anybody hasn't gotten the email down. But thank you so much.
Welcome. And
Thank you so
I'm
much,
really
Christy.
glad that so you don't know what you want to do, but you know what you don't want to do. That's just about as valuable. So I would say, I wouldn't phrase it as you don't know what you want to do. You know what, I'm really narrowing down on what I want to do because I'm crossing off all the stuff on the list that I don't. Knowing what you don't want to do isn't any more powerful than having 6 things. Just, you got to come down to where you want to go. So thank you all very, very much. I'm going to go see which flyer I'm going to put out first, which is so exciting. And I am at your disposal. So thank you, Danielle, so much. Danielle and I met and I said to her, please reach out to me. She did. And she'll reach out to me, can you do this again? Can you do? Every time she asks, I say yes. Every time she doesn't ask, we're clearly not in touch. So she reaches out and she always gets a yes because she asks. So thank you guys so very much. Have a wonderful day, Danielle. Thank you for the opportunity and I'll see you guys again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Get out of sleep.